To me, it's crazy that we don't have that freedom to sell individual cuts of meat at a state inspected level. It opens up so many more opportunities for smaller farms and ranches and operations. The inspection, at least in my opinion, is no different between USDA federal inspection and a state inspection. All it is a stamp. To what point are we leaving it up to whoever's buying the meat to buy whatever they feel comfortable with?
That's how I feel about raw milk.
How well is raw milk? How many E. coli breakouts are on lettuce every year too?
So I guess to get started, because you're a first generation rancher, just love to hear your upbringing, because where you're ranching now, it's actually where you grew up, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I'm born and raised Saugerties.
So did you have any connection to your food at all? Or did you grow up just have everything from a grocery store and just the typical standard American route?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I don't ever remember. I mean, I grew up half a mile from a vegetable farm that's been around for a while. So I'm sure my parents had bought stuff from there, but I don't ever remember growing up really having any knowledge of like where my food came from. Yeah, just in the last like 5 or so years, it's something I've been become more interested in.
Was it before the pandemic that really started, or during?
Yeah, no, it was before. It probably started when I was traveling cross country. Without me really knowing, that's kind of where I think the spark got lit, at least where I traveled out west and lived out of a van for about a month and a half. And yeah, I think when I got back from that is kind of when I started having more of an interest in farming, ranching, and where the food I ate came from.
What do you think it was about that 1.5 month period of traveling that, started that spark in your mind?
I think just the time that I had, I did it by myself. So the time that I had by myself, and then I think just seeing different land. I mean, I didn't travel and see farms or anything specifically, but I think probably just the time I had by myself. And at the time, it was just something that I had like a slight interest in, and it just grew to starting my own operation.
So leading up to, well, I guess take it back to, was there like a certain, definitive point in the recent times where like, I'm finally going to actually make that leap?
Yeah. So it kind of started with me wanting to find a job in agriculture. I always knew I wanted to be with livestock. I do not have a green thumb, and the work that vegetable farming has is not something I'm interested in. So that's a lot, and it's a different type of work. So
it's way different, because the farm I worked on, it had 6 kinds of animals, but it had a big production side, and so half the time I was sitting on a bucket just picking beans, and it definitely made me grateful. That's for damn sure. That stuff's no joke. So that's kind of a side tangent too, because that's just interesting on the topic of where the production side of agriculture with vegetables and fruit, where that's going to go in the future because one thing that's really talked about right now is the labor aspect, because that is such a difficult thing to tackle. I mean, for you, I don't think you really need any additional labor, and you can do it by yourself.
Yeah.
But if you were to continue to scale, definitely would. And that is one clearly tough part of agriculture, to where, the whole ice ordeal going on, and they had the massive raid in California. That stuff's really legit, because it's already hard to make it by as a farmer or rancher, and then having to hire someone else to do that backbreaking work. You've got to have good incentives, essentially.
Yeah.
Because you're literally just bent over doing backbreaking work all day. And for very little pay, essentially.
Yeah. It's I enjoy working, but that is not something that I think I would enjoy. I don't mind. I get antsy if I have nothing to do, but that's not really work that I have ever had an interest in even trying.
What made you land on sheep then?
Um,
Here's it. Freak, another tick. There's so many everywhere. But keep going, sorry.
So I landed on sheep because they're easier to get into. Like we were saying before, they cost less per head when you're buying your herd or flock, whatever you want to call it. They require less land and generally less infrastructure. And there's not a lot. I mean, there's some lamb operation, sheep farms around here, but cows are way more common, I think, no matter where you go. So it was also like having a different meat to be able to sell rather than beef. I mean, everybody eats beef. The market on lamb is like hit or miss. People either love it or they don't like it. But I mean, I don't know of any other like solely sheep operation around here. So I think it was like the cost to get to start my flock, and then also just having a somewhat niche market to explore.
Are you able to speak on the startup cost of it all? Because this is one interesting thing that I just want to try to talk with just folks in different aspects of agriculture is, for me, the whole goal is, raising awareness and helping educate, but also wanting to help. I know there's people out there, because I'm an example to where you might not know it, but farming and ranching might be that thing that will actually fulfill you. It doesn't mean that you'll, going to be making buku bucks that you might have been making previously, but you'd be way more fulfilled. And so when thinking of trying to get into something that's already very difficult to get into, which is agriculture and starting a farm or ranch, just would, be curious to hear the startup costs. And then also, I'll start with that.
Yeah. So I originally bought 15 ewes that were bred from PA Lamb Farm in Pennsylvania. It was run by Nathan Smeltzer and his family, who has been a huge help to me throughout starting my operation. I bought them for all 15 cost me $4,500, which again is way cheaper than buying cattle, but it's still an investment to an extent. And then the electric netting, energizer, the couple corral panels that I bought, I think the first year startup cost was somewhere around like 15, 20 grand. And that's with like operating on a very low input management style. So I don't have a barn. I'm not buying feed because we're grass-fed, grass-finished. I'm not buying vaccines or medicine or antibiotics or anything. So those costs I'm able to keep low, but starting up, it was around 15 to 20,000.
Does that include the leased land too?
Luckily, I have lucked out with the people that I've leased from and have more of like a bargaining agreement with like them getting lamb meat as a payment, which again, I'm very thankful for. But
if you had to guesstimate, say some folks that might be interested, you mentioned the first half, but won't have the means to buy outright buy land. I mean, I know that's very context dependent, so that might not be the right question to ask. It might be, what would you recommend for people to go to online when looking for leased land, I should say then?
If you're in New York Farmland Finder, that's how I got the lease that we just visited that's cheaper at That is a website that you create a profile if you're a property owner or a farmer looking for land. There's land for sale and there's land for lease. So if you're in New York, that's where I would start. That's how I found where the sheep are now. The lease that we're at right now, I came across through a mutual friend. So the cost of land, especially in our area, is expensive, and it's been expensive since COVID. So buying a property is like, I don't want to say not attainable, but it's very hard, especially a property that you can effectively run livestock on, whether it be sheep, pigs, cattle, or whatever. So I plan on leasing land for quite a while because it's just, even if I had to make payments, it's still going to be way cheaper than putting all that money up front to buy a property. Because then you're stuck with having to make that payment. Whereas like on leased land, you can probably, depending on how good of a relationship you have with the property owner, you can either do what I did and work out a bargaining agreement, or even if you're making payments, it's realistically probably not going to be that much money that you have to put up front, and you can do a yearly basis, you can do long term. There's more flexibility with leasing, so and that's the only experience I have, so that's what I would recommend.
Because it's obviously a way different feeling actually outright owning the land. What's it like to just be working on, just lease land? I know that's kind of a basic question, but because that's the one thing I would assume as a farmer rancher, the dream is to own the land, and then because that is the land that you then get to steward for however long that may be. But on lease land, it's kind of like renting an apartment versus owning a house. And in some ways, I don't know if that's the right comparison, but is that a right comparison in your perspective?
It's basically the same thing. You're basically, you either are doing it, depends how you work it out, but you can do it on a yearly basis where you go year to year, or if you come into a longer term with the property owner, 5, 10, whatever years, it gives you flexibility. Now, it's not your property, so that's where communication and relationship with the property owner comes into play, even before you sign the contract, whether it's a handshake contract or a paper contract. I think you both have to be clear on what you want. And that in the long run is going to make it easier or harder for you, because some people are going to want their property managed a certain way. They're going to want it always looking clean. So you may have to mow fields if they get out of control, which is going to affect your grazing management. Or you may have total freedom like I have with both leases, where we talk about plans and ideas and everything, but we're all kind of on the same page. And I'm very lucky with both leases. I kind of have freedom to manage how I want to manage.
Yeah. Now, whenever you're saying how mowing could change the grazing pattern, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so if a property owner likes seeing fields mowed rather than mature grass, so if you can't get to a paddock before it goes to full maturity, if that property owner wants it mowed, you mow it, and then you're going to be on that mowed ground in 45, 60, whatever days. Say you don't get rain and you don't get that regrowth, that's going to set back. You're going to be basically overgrazing that grass because if it's not fully rested and recovered, which is going to, like I said, affect how you graze. Because you can't plan. You can have plans for droughts and stuff, but you're not really going to know when or if they're going to come.
Yeah.
So if you mow a piece of ground and you have to overgraze it, doing it one time isn't going to be the end of the world, but it has an effect.
Have you had any crazy droughts in these 2 years that you've started?
Last year, my first year, and I lucked out very well with finding the lease that we were at, the bigger one, Mr. Buell's. The first half of last year, which was my first year in operation, was great. We're no short as a normal rain year, and then it shut off end of June, early July, and basically didn't rain most of the rest of the year until end of fall. So we had grazed the pasture and they just needed more time to recover. So I went online and was looking for another lease, which I was going to need in the future anyway, with growing the flock. And got in touch with Mr. Buelich, and we did a little trial run over there, starting in end of September. They were there until harvest when we brought them back here in middle of December.
In this 2023?
2024.
2024.
Yeah. Yep. Because I bought the flock at the end of 2023. So 2024 was my first full year in operation. And yeah. So, and even when I brought the sheep back in the winter, like I said, the drought, just the grass here never quite recovered. So yeah, that's just something with grazing animals you have to work with, deal with. It's kind of Mother Nature, so you can only do so much.
Do you remember the first day that you finally started and had them on pasture?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was cool. It was in the winter, so it wasn't green grass. It was stockpiled. The pastures had grown all year and weren't mowed, so we had them on stockpiled grass, feeding hay supplementally. Yeah, it was cool.
Were you nervous at all? Because
no,
I feel like for that, it's just like, shit, this is real.
I don't know if nervous is the right word. It was exciting.
Yeah.
I wasn't nervous because nothing was going wrong. I mean, it's the first day, so I had nothing to be nervous about.
Yeah.
And I've been pretty good with like dealing with stuff just as it comes and not worry about too much. So I would say it was more exciting than nerve-wracking.
Now that you're 2 years in too, has it helped shift your perspective or just perception of life?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because because for me, whenever mentioning like just the shepherd and kind of going biblical in some ways and just seeing it all in play, because for me, before my brother passed, I was agnostic, and agriculture is actually what led me back to God in a way. And so I'm just curious, it doesn't even have to be in that, but that was just kind of an example of, for me, that really helped really shift my perspective on life.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't raised religious, so I don't know if it had that effect on me, but it definitely, and I've always been an outdoor person and appreciated just like being out in nature and all that, but it definitely, it's hard to say. It makes me, I guess, appreciate things more. I think caring for life outside of like your own is kind of impactful. So that, I guess, has had somewhat an effect on me.
Yeah. Well, because it makes me just think about just being self-sovereign too. And what that usually entails is taking on a lot of responsibility for yourself, but others. And now you have not human lives, but you just still have animals that you still kind of have some emotional attachment to, especially if you were to lose one.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's just interesting.
that is more. It's tough losing animals, whether it's losing a lamb because of birthing complications or weather, being that we lamb out in pasture. That always kind of hits at the heart. It's part of it, so you have to kind of deal with it. And I wouldn't say callous it over too much, because I think if it reaches a point where like it doesn't affect you, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me appreciate that more. Having to deal with death makes you appreciate the new life every year more, and then it gives you more enjoyment seeing them living a good life. And then I think just working, whether it be the land or with animals, doing tangible work with something, especially livestock. Yeah, it's enjoyable work.
Well, then speaking of work too, having an off the ranch job, how are you able to manage all of that? Because I actually saw, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago, that according to USDA, this was I think 2023 to 2024, so it's pretty up to date. 84% of farmers have an off the farm job, and that is something I don't think most consumers really understand, that a lot of these folks still have to work. So I was at the RCAF USA conference last month, and I was overhearing a woman talk how when she was talking to just other young people and sharing her stories and how were like, what? And she was just saying how one time crazy bad storms, had to go check on some animals at 3 a.m. and then had to go straight into work, came back, and it was still bad storms, and so still had to take care of the other animals. And you just got to do what you got to do with that. And most people don't realize that at all. And so I'm just curious, how do you balance all of that?
I mean, you can only balance it so much. I mean, if you...
Yeah, I don't even know if balance is even the right word.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, if you have a job, you have to show up to that job. And I think that I could not show up to the job, but that's not going to work out well for me. And I also think that's like just a respect thing. Even if I have issues here, I have an obligation to be somewhere else. So it's just not slacking off on the ranch side of it. Like, it's early mornings and sometimes it's late nights that you just have to deal with. And it always seems like the end of the world when you're going through like a shitty situation, but it usually works out somehow. And you're always going to have those situations. It's never going to be like fun and games and enjoyable all the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like not losing your head in that situation and just dealing with it. I mean, and I think most people in agriculture are good with that. It's just part of the life.
Do you have an example to share of just how crazy those two were having at your job and your other job?
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind, and it worked out, but it was something like, it was in the first year. It was in the first couple months, actually. Like I said, I bought my used bred. One of them was bred early, unknowingly. And we're focused on lambing on pasture, so that means May, not in the winter. It was February, I think. And I came out in the morning to feed hay before I went to work, and there was 2 lambs born. In like frigid temperatures. They were both standing and nursing, that's the most important thing. But I had to go to work. So that was kind of like, I was going into work with all that in my mind, like, are they going to be all right? So that was the first kind of like wrench that got thrown into some stuff. And then I also had the sheep get out. Actually, prior to that, I had all the sheep get out, and lost one in the woods for a couple days. Got her back, but it took a couple days to
Yeah, can you help
wrangle her.
Because you talked about this before this. Can you share the full story on all that?
Yeah, so someone's dog ran through the electric netting while I was off, and not aggressively, but started chasing the sheep around, and they all got out. I wrangled them all back in, or what I thought was all of them. Did a head count, and I was one shy. Luckily, it had snowed that day, or maybe the night before, so I was able to track her, or at least follow tracks that went into the woods. Didn't find her. Had a friend get in contact with a mutual friend that had a thermal drone. Tried to track her on a thermal drone, didn't find her. So I thought she was way gone. And the next morning, before I went to work, got up early, and just out of obligation, had to go out in the woods to see if I could find her, and found her on the trail. Wrangling one sheep is damn near impossible because they're a flock. So like, it's just, especially without a dog, it's tough. Got her back to where the wood line meets the pasture, and she turned around and went right back in the woods. So I had to go to work and came back, I think that evening, and a couple friends of mine, we went back in the woods, and eventually I got her with a crook after trying a couple times, and we got a hold of her and threw her in a vehicle and drove her back into the paddock with the rest of the sheep. But those are the first two, like in the first couple months. So it wasn't easy right away, but now it all worked out. So now it's like, it's just funny to think on and have that as a memory.
Yeah. Now, when talking on the breeds of sheep too, did you really have a choice in that? Because I know you mentioned that you bought them from Pennsylvania, but I didn't know if you whenever you were doing your research, looking at specific breeds, and then that was just the best option, or how did you go about all of that too?
Yeah. I did research before I bought sheep, and I settled on hair sheep. So hair sheep don't technically have wool. They naturally shed their winter coats. So come the end of June, everybody is pretty much shed out, and they have their slick summer coats on. So that I chose hair sheep because I don't have to have them sheared, and the wool market is not great. There's people you can find that use yarn, but it's just another expense. Paying someone to have them sheared, and then I have to do something with the wool. So
not great as in just there's not enough demand, or
yeah, I think it's just like what you get for it, the cost to have them sheared, and I'm speaking on someone that doesn't run wool sheep. So, I'm only speaking out of like what I've read. You're paying to have them sheared, and then the cost of wool, because I just don't like, wool's not used in clothing all that much anymore. It's kind of used for hobby people that knit and stuff. So I think the return on it isn't a great it's not a great return, at least from my knowledge. So
yeah, the whole apparel industry is really jacked up. I really hope, well, because going back to the fact that we just have no sheep overall in America, It would be awesome if we had to really come back with that, and then also incorporating more wool, because the actual fiber material for clothes is incredible.
Oh, it's great. Everybody thinks it's itchy, but it's not.
No.
And it's, yeah, I mean, there's companies like Duckworth out of Montana that I have one of their sweatshirts, and I mean, it's the best. And it's just, it just comes down to a cost of production, and everything's cutting corners. So, because it's a very, I mean, we can easily make clothing out of it. I mean, we have for forever.
Now, mentioning, you're saying they shed the hair. Is there any utility? Do you do anything with the hair?
No. So the winter coats that they shed, just shed on pasture. Now, there are benefits for it shedding on pasture. It's very high in nitrogen.
Really?
So it'll break down in the soil. It takes a while to break down, but it will break down. And so if it'll feed the soil, it holds moisture great. A lot of people nowadays are actually putting it in gardens.
I saw this one Irish farmer on Instagram share exactly that actually last night. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's, I think, still pretty niche, but that's a use for it. And then, I mean, birds will take it for nesting. So those positives are a positive for me.
Well, especially the whole nitrogen, because that's one thing when talking about fertilizers and inputs. That's a massive one in America, is the nitrogen aspect. And so I didn't even think about that. That's just hair.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I get a lot of people that's one of the most common things that I get asked is like, what do I do with their shedded coats? Cause it comes out in patches. So even collecting it is for me, it's not worth it. It's got a better use being used by birds or just breaking down into the soil.
Yeah. Now, transitioning a little bit, Joe Sullivan, what I really like whenever he shares, like in terms of regenerative agriculture, just letting the animals be themselves, like letting a chicken be a chicken, a pig be a pig. So what does it mean for a lamb to be a lamb?
Speaking as not a lamb.
Well, just from your observations.
Yeah. Just, I think, being outside year round, they are not fazed by weather. They don't get, they have thick coats in the winter, so they deal with cold temps and snow fine. They dig through snow for grass. In the summer, they have thin coats, so I have Katahdin Dorper sheep. That's the breed that I have. So they're well adjusted to the Northeast environment. So they do fine in cold temps and are hot and humid summers.
So they're like bison.
Yeah, I think they prefer the colder temps.
Yeah.
But they do fine. And it's just managing them in a way that mimics bison. Before people manage livestock, it's just letting them live a natural life with less to no inputs. We don't vaccinate, deworm, feed grain, antibiotics, or any of that. We call for the lesser genetics. If someone is not working out in our management style, if they're falling behind any, they'll get pulled from the flock and go as coal meat, or they'll get sold to another farm. And then the better genetics just thrive. And if they do well in our system, those are the sheep that we want. And that keeps our costs down and allows them to live as natural life as a domestic sheep can live. Yeah,
right. Now, when talking on marketing, because that's one aspect that's very challenging in agriculture, because a lot of farmers, they just want to farm. They don't really want to do the whole marketing and that business side of things. That's really crucial, especially in today's day. So how did you go about, once you finally got your sheep and now it's time to actually develop relationships and build some type of customer base? How'd you go about all of that?
Well, I think there's a lot that you can do without social media in local communities, just by word of mouth. I mean, I have tons of friends and family that support me, which is great. And their friends, if they have interest, they support me. And then marketing outside of, kind of outside the local community, that's always the main focus. But just sharing on social media, Instagram, kind of like what the work looks like, what's going on like a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. I'm not the best at it. There's people that are very good at social media, and that can have a positive impact. But if you're focused mainly on like local communities, I think that's not the most important thing. I think just letting people see your operation and being open to people visiting. And yeah, and then hopefully you just get that support. You kind of have to leave it up to fate or whatever, and hopefully you get it and can make it work. Yeah, but the main focus, at least for me, is always like local. If I can provide nutrient-dense protein and lamb for local families, that's the first and most important thing.
I love that. So for the friends and family that had been supporting you, were they also buying from other farmers and ranchers beforehand, or this was the first time like, oh, we finally know someone who's actually doing it all?
Both. I have people that buy from other small farms. There's not a lot of people that sell meat or lamb around here, so I kind of one of the few people that offer that. But yeah, I've had people that buy from local operations a lot, and then I've had people that generally don't like lamb and have been willing to try it, I think just out of support, and then end up liking it. Because I think a lot of people, I think they've had bad experiences with lamb because it's not a popular thing in America. So a lot of it, especially in the older days, I think was like always mutton, which is, it's considered mutton once it's a year old, but it can be bad or not taste great. But
like super gamey, or
yeah, and I think that has an effect too. I think people that grew up eating venison, I think, don't see lamb as being gamey because they eat venison. Because the best way I describe lamb is like in between venison and beef. I guess it's a gamier beef.
Yeah.
But if someone doesn't mind that, they usually enjoy lamb.
You can get some great tasting lamb. Because again, the farm I worked on had lamb too, and it was so good. But then I've had others that was just very gamey. But I like the description of it. I think it is between a beef and an elk or deer.
Yep, it's just it's basically just a leaner beef that I think has. The word gamey is, the most used, but I think it's more of. It's just more of like an earthy taste. I think earthy is a better way. It's
Actually, now that you said that,
gamey
I
is
like that
kind
too.
of like it seems like you're turned off by it. but it's the most popular and easy way to describe it. But yeah, I've had great feedback on it. And I don't know how much, because so the hair sheep supposedly have a less mild flavor than wool sheep. That's like what you'll read. I've had wool lamb that tastes just as good. But a lot of that comes down to how it's processed at harvest as well. I think if you have, because they have lanolin on the outside of their coats in the winter, which repels water. And if that gets on the meat, it's an oil, so you're basically not going to get it off. And I think maybe that could be when people have had bad experiences with it, it could be that. A lot has to do with, a lot can get messed up if it's not harvested and taken care of right by whoever's butchering it.
Outside of stress, what would be other things that could impact that?
I think the forage that they eat, I'm sure that has an effect. I don't know how much that of an effect it would have on flavor. Staying in the Northeast, like I'm sure lamb out west where they're eating sagebrush and all that, I'm sure that plays a big factor based on lamb raised in Northeast where they're eating just different grasses. But I think the biggest thing is stress and how they're handled at harvest, before and after they're dispatched.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioning that you harvest on site. When talking, I guess, just in general with permits, whenever you're setting everything up to what that side of agriculture, was there a lot of paperwork and permits and things that you had to file?
No, so the only thing that I had to file was my flock ID number with the USDA. And anyone that has sheep has to do that. And that's just for scrapie outbreaks. If there's an outbreak somewhere, they can track it to an operation. So any sheep that leaves the farm, whether it's for meat or just live sale, has to have the flock ID tag in its ear. I tag all lambs and everyone, so everybody has it, whether they leave or not. It's just easier for me. So that's the only thing I had to do. Harvest-wise, there's nothing I had to fill out. Being that we do whole and half share direct to consumer, it allows me to basically stay with custom exempt packaging, which is state inspected. It's not USDA inspected. So being able to do that, when people reserve a share from me, that deposit is them buying that live lamb. And then all I'm doing is raising it and bringing it to harvest. And then they pay the remaining balance and the butcher fees. So that allows me, I'm technically selling live animals and not individual packaged cuts of meat. And besides being able to support local slaughterhouses versus going to a bigger USDA facility, I prefer it for the animal's sake as well, because they're not getting transported on a trailer to a facility that they don't know. They're harvested on the ground that they were born on.
Yeah, that's one interesting aspect, is just the whole processing, because that's a massive bottleneck in America. And then trying to open up a new processing facility is a giant nightmare and so costly. Don't know if it's going to work. And then try to do something on site that could be challenging with whoever that you might have to get approvals. It's all over the place.
Yeah. There's not a lot of mobile butchers, but the guy that I work with is an hour and a half north of here, and they've been great. They handle the animals well. They package the meat well. They're very easy to communicate with through text or call. They're always responsive, which is very big. Makes my life easier if I have any questions. Yeah, the big thing that I really wish, and it varies on state, is some states are allowed to sell individual cuts of meat that are state inspected. New York, like everything else, is very, very regulated, and we are not allowed to do that. So that's one thing that I hope in the future changes. If small farms and operations are allowed to use state inspected facilities, whether it's harvested on farm or it's brought to just a smaller state inspected facility, and we can sell individual cuts, it opens up so many more opportunities for smaller farms and ranches and operations. And the inspection is no different, at least in my opinion, is no different between USDA federal inspection and a state inspection. All it is it's stamp. And to what point are we leaving it up to whoever's buying the meat to buy whatever they feel comfortable with? I mean, you can buy USDA inspected meat and it go bad in your fridge and get sick from it. And it's like, at what point is it up to the consumer to have the freedom to choose where and the inspection that their food comes from?
That's how I feel about raw milk, which is why I always wear this hat.
How well is raw milk? I mean, how many E. coli breakouts are on lettuce every year too?
Well, and just like for beef, because we import so much and mix it all together, there was just another recall and outbreak a couple days ago, and all that stuff is very avoidable.
Yeah, and I mean, if a business isn't going to do well if they're selling badly packaged, contaminated meat. So, yeah, to me, it's crazy that we don't have that freedom to sell individual cuts of meat at a state inspected level.
Yeah. On the topic of grocery stores, would you buy lamb from a grocery store? Because
no, I wouldn't.
Interesting. Because
I
it
don't
makes
buy
me
any meat from a grocery store.
Okay. Yeah, because like on the context of like say pork, I've not bought pork probably 5-6 years from the grocery store. I refuse to ever buy that. Most chicken, no, unless it's pasture bird at Sprouts. Some beef, and then there's some brands. I'm trying to think of the brand for the lamb that's typically in like Sprouts and bigger chains like that. But yeah, I'm curious then. So you don't?
Yeah, I don't. Not that it's a bad thing. If that's what you can afford, buy it. It's better than not eating it. If you have the option to buy it, if you have the option and you can afford to buy from a local farm, that's the best way to go, and it's the most impactful. We don't have like Sprouts or Whole Foods that, because I know there are bigger operations that are in those stores that you can buy grass-fed, grass-finished, like regeneratively raised meat. And I think that's a good option to have. I don't think all grocery stores should go away. But I just don't personally buy them because I'm just not that option here. And there's plenty of other local places I can buy beef and pork and chicken from.
Now, at the ranch, mentioning that you're wanting to expand your flock, do you plan to expand to other animals like cows or chickens or pigs or anything? Or is that just too far?
If anything, cows. I will always focus on sheep. That'll always be the main animal. But if the price of cows ever comes down, I would eventually like to buy some cows. The only thing that kind of turns me away from that is being that I want to stick with whole and half shares. It's a heck of a lot easier to sell a whole lamb than it is even a quarter of a cow. Less freezer space. It's less of a cost up front. So I may look into custom grazing cows, which is just grazing another person's cows.
Yeah.
On one of these leases. But right now the focus is always going to be on sheep. Chickens, all the animals are great, and if people are managing all of them, they have great benefits to the land. And just being able to offer different meats also makes it easier. But pigs are more work than I want to get into. You got to supplement, feed them for the most part. I actually raised 2 pigs before I had the sheep, just for me and my father, and it was fun. They're awesome animals to be around because they're so friendly, but they're just a mess. And they're like the sheep. I just got to give the sheep grass, mineral, and water, and that's all. So I think the focus will always be on at least ruminants.
That's good that you mentioned all that, because when talking in the context of regenerative, multi-species is very important. But then also from an economic standpoint, labor standpoint, other variables too, in the current state, it's very challenging to have fully all of that. And especially because only 2 years in, it could still, and the flip of the switch can change quickly. And so you don't want to expand too quickly to other animals, and then you're just like, I've got to shut it all down.
Yeah.
It's very challenging. And that's what I'm trying to also trying to get the consumers to really understand everything you have to think about in agriculture. And you have to think long-term and big picture.
Yeah. The big thing that you always hear is that the cost. Everybody complains about the costs of meat from local farms or the cost of eggs.
Yeah, do you have complaints about the cost of your land?
I don't.
Well, actually, it's different because you don't do like the cuts. I had a feeling that might be different.
Yeah. So the people that are buying from me know it's more of an investment because they're buying a whole or half animal. So they're basically putting up half of the money in the beginning of the year and then paying the remaining balance at the end of the year. So they're getting a cheaper price per pound than if I were to sell it as individual cuts. But I mean, you always hear about it with eggs, or just anything from local farms. I mean, a smaller local operation is going to cost more than food in a grocery store.
The very challenging thing with that too, from the consumer standpoint, they think that they're getting ripped off and those farmers and ranchers are making more money off of you.
Yeah.
And it's not true whatsoever. The only reason why they're doing that is so they could legitimately continue on.
Yeah. Ranchers and farmers, 99% of them are not getting rich off the cost of what they're selling. And again, it's not for everyone. I get, like, if you can't afford it, don't go broke trying to buy food. But if you can afford it, why not pay an extra couple dollars that money is staying in your local community? It's not even going to a different state. It's not going to a big packer that is operating outside of the country.
It's also supporting the food system that you actually want long-term too. That's another thing that I'm really trying to get the consumers to understand is, all right, you're waking up now to what's happened and what's going on. And, once people start learning about the fact that so much beef and other animals is imported, but labeled product the USA, the only way I was talking to you about this before the podcast. To me, the only way our food system ever fixes long term and wants it to be to where we want it to be, it's up to what you do with your dollar. And if you actually are supporting the folks actually doing the work, because I also harp online about where we're at with our numbers and the fact that dairies, 89% have been lost since 1980. Pig farms, 91%. Lamb, it's just already a severely small industry. Ranching's under attack. And so the numbers of just the sheer amount of people doing that is just continuing to dwindle. And so if you're already complaining about the price, just think about true American grass-fed beef. Long term, it's going to be even more than that. And so you have to start now, and you have to take the initiative now, because then it's going to be too late.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have
and I don't want to say that as like a dooms, but that's just like the reality.
Yeah, and I think it's such big picture. It's a lot of people have a hard time comprehending it. But yeah, I mean, not being able to produce our own food in our own country is a very big issue. I mean, if we can't feed our people, that's not good.
No, and it's not. We are really at fragile times with the food system, going with even just the cattle numbers, how it's the lowest since the 50s. When we were talking about ticks, so here there's a lot of crazy ticks. I mean, we were just walking, they were just crawling like spiders.
Probably pick a couple more off.
But now there's a new tick in Michigan, has ties to China. We already have seen earlier this year, 2 people got caught bringing in another type of, I can't even remember, was it some type of fungus or something that...
I think so, yeah, something like that.
They also are the reasoning behind citrus green that's taking out 90% of all orange the orange groves in Florida. I wholeheartedly believe China is attacking our food system deliberately. And then again, this goes back to the out of sight, out of mind thing, to where it can just happen so quick to everything just been decimated. But then on the flip side, going to the gradually and suddenly, if people can slowly wake up and slowly continue to wake everybody else up, then on the flip side, it's to where our food system get a lot better quickly, in my opinion. I know we have all these crazy rules and it's all really captured in a lot of ways, but we have a lot more influence than we realize with our dollar, but also with our voice online. And that's also what I'm trying to get at is vote with your dollar, but then you have to get behind the actual farmers and ranchers physically, but online too, because it works. I've talked a lot online about the Mod family in South Dakota. You can look that up. I've already talked about it a lot, but to me, one of the biggest reasons that helped was because of people. If we can continue doing that, I think that can really work. And then that really builds the communities that have been lost in America. Because another thing too that we've really faced in America is, we have our work, we have our home, but then we've lost that third piece. I guess that could be actually a good segue into something that you're doing is some type of dinner that you do. If you could talk more on that too, that you did for the first time and you plan to do in October, you said?
Yeah. Last year it was the first year in operation. It was the first time we did it. So we do a ranch dinner that in October. So we have a chef that I got in contact with through another couple that I know that have a small Wagyu operation. They got me in contact with this chef. We talked and he was willing to partner with me to do a ranch dinner that basically supports and celebrates local agriculture through food. So we use my lamb and and then he sources all the other ingredients from local farms. And people buy tickets. I think we did 36 or so seats last year. And yeah, everyone had a great time. So he cooks on an open fire. Everybody hangs out for a few hours. Once the food's ready, everybody sits down. It's family style, so it doesn't come out in like plated courses. It comes out and we pass it down the table. Everybody picks from those platters, and it's 5 courses. So it comes out in each course, and yeah, it's just passing around local food, and that is a way, one, for me to, I don't do it for the money, but it's another way for me to have another source of income throughout the year. Being that agriculture is not a cash flow business, so it allows me to make a little bit of extra money that helps me operate throughout the growing season and the rest of the year, or for next year. And yeah, it also, my goal is hopefully people, it maybe sparks an interest in people buying, even if it's not from me, just buying from local farms.
Absolutely. You're bridging that gap. You're helping you're helping with the massive problem of our disconnection from our food. That had to be a pretty cool feeling that you helped cultivate that.
Yeah, I'm not a talkative person. This is even out of my comfort zone, but so I'm not someone that's going to stand up and have a speech or anything. So I tend to stay quiet. But yeah, it does feel good. It just, yeah, it makes me happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's what my hope continuing as people wake up and have these opportunities, because I've had their Grassway Organics, a raw dairy farm in Wisconsin, and every summer they have what they call pizza on the farm, to where they use, their dairy and then local other places for the dough and everything else. And it's just a great way to build a community again and also have good food. You get to see the land, obviously have great conversations. I really hope we just have more of that. That's another great thing for any listeners that might be able to help with the local farm or ranch put something together, because it really only just takes one nudge to start something like that. Because I don't know where I'm going. It just makes me just think about, how can we get people onto farms and ranches? Because it's a whole 0 to 1 example. I talk about this a lot. How can you get someone who's in his 40s, 50s, 60s, or even a younger generation to where they spend a lot of time online and video games and whatnot? How do we get these people to visit a farm or ranch? And there's the whole nudge to where it's like the similar aspect to if you set your clothes out the day before, it's a good way to set the day and whatnot. So having these little nudges to get people to take the initiative. And so to go on a farm or ranch, I feel like having these cool events that you go out and actually have good food is such a great way to slowly build those around America.
Yeah, I think it's offering, if you want to call it an experience, I think that's a way to do that, because I'm open to people visiting and seeing and walking, asking questions about the sheep and all that. And it may be enjoyable for that person, but it's different than getting like a group of people together, and just kind of having a good time, and then hoping that maybe starts something else in their head, that they'll go to another farm or just start buying local. I think doing stuff outside of just raising animals and selling meat is important nowadays. Yeah, I think you kind of have to offer other experiences. rather than just selling a product.
Yeah, and just going back to the additional income, that's one thing I was talking on the previous farm, how she used to do free tours, but now, and they were always constant, but now she's consolidating and paid tours. Again, that's one thing that consumers don't understand is they might just think that, oh, you're just ripping us off, but you're taking time out of your day, have already very busy day to where there's always something you could be doing and improving or fixing this or that. So yeah, I just wanted to add that little tidbit, but I think that's really all I have on my end. I don't know if there's any last things that you would like to share or any topics that I might have missed.
Not that I can think of. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me.
Absolutely.
Stopping by.
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is really cool. I hope that this is, in terms of like having people like these barns in America to me, the barns in America is one of the coolest, one of the most underappreciated aspects of our history, our barns.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to, I don't know anyone that would walk in here and not like it.
No, at all.
I
was enthralled as soon as look, you could just see, I don't know. It left me speechless because clearly I can't even explain right now.
Yeah, it's cool for sure.
So I guess I'll end on, as always, shake the hand that feeds you. Visit www.theregenaissance.co to learn more.